Hello and welcome to the Vital Redpill. Today a quick unscripted episode. We start with 3 very important points, please watch them, and the rest is optional. Tomorrow on Sunday the 26th of September is the next super mega big German election. The era Merkel is going to end. So to fulfill the clickbait, here is the picture of Merkel being bit by parrots. Afterwards she was asked to hold the owl on her hand, but she declined, quoting the previous experience. Instead, her 33-year-old colleague held the owl. Then I would like to point your attention to the official German law on prevention and control of infectious diseases in human infections. Infektionsschutzgesetz 21. This is a real official law, you can check it out yourselves. In the case of a protective vaccination ordered by the basis of this act, or a vaccination publicly recommended by the Supreme State Health Authority, or a vaccination in accordance with Section 17a of the Soldiers Act, vaccines may be used that contain microorganisms that can be excreted by the vaccinated person and ingested by other persons. The fundamental right of physical integrity, Article 2 of the Basic Law, is restricted in this respect. This most likely refers to vaccine shedding. The knowledge that vaccines can shed organisms is as big as a secret that 3 to the power of 3 is 21. So it's actually pretty well known by all of science. And another important thing was the first time that I watched a political party and I was surprised. There's the party of Rainer Füllmilch, who's maybe known to some. He created his own party called the Basis, and they held a global pandemic exit exercise. So what they did was, they just pretended what would happen if the current government steps down and it's they who are now in charge to fix all the problems. I was very surprised to see politicians being, well, based and red-pilled and openly talk about all the things that you would never hear in mainstream media. And also the fact that this party decided that government is getting too big and that power should be limited. Even though it was just an exercise, it was still pretty white-pilling to see that politics could be better. Of course, his party also has many flaws and already many people joined the party who are aiming for their own personal goals. But still, their idea that the president of Germany could be a totally based and red-pilled guy was very refreshing. The last very important point is related to updates in the YouTube guidelines according to the German election. After the elections, any speculations or fake news about the German election can cause your video to be deleted without any warning. So, what happened in the last months of the German Wahlkampf election battle? It all started long time ago that Baerbock, the Green Party lady, was presented in all the TV shows all the time and there was a lot of media attention on her. All this despite being the fact that the Green Party currently holds the least amount of seats in the parliament. Then many scandals regarding her CV and other things were discovered, and the Green Party lost a lot of points in the election predictions. Thus, Laschet, the laughing man, became the #1 candidate. But then he started to laugh, at the most inappropriate of times as shown in my previous video. This cost him a lot of points. Not only this, but also other things were uncovered about him. It seems that whoever is in the spotlight gets a lot of darkness revealed about him. This then caused Olaf Schultz, the most boring of the 3, to become the guy with the most votes at the moment. According to the current election predictions, it will be Olaf Schultz who will rule with the Green Party and the Left Party in Germany. It will be called Red-Red-Green. So a left-leaning, green-leaning coalition. But that's only according to the predictions. In Germany, it's also possible to vote by letter, mail-in voting. So the voting procedure actually started over a month ago. So a lot of the latest recent events may not have reached all the voters. So the final voting outcome might be different. Also, it might be possible that the German parties learn from the success of the Democrats in the United States. So let's see how that will turn out. Also very interesting, German election politics became a very interesting thing, starting also with this YouTuber here. He took all the candidates and made an exposed video on them, showing all the flaws and all the shady connections they have, and all the previous mistakes that got the memory hold. I was pretty surprised by watching his videos, as he did a substantial amount of research, and almost no candidate came out unscathed. Let me sum it all up quickly from the top of my head. Armin Laschet, the man who laughed, he gained power by joining a fraternity and marrying the right girl. And marrying the right girl. A girl whose father was very influential. So he married his way into power. And then there was a big scandal of a forest that had to be cut down because there was coal beneath it. Many nature protection groups started to live inside the forest. For example, they built tree houses. And Laschet was then tasked by the energy company, RWE I think, to remove them all so that the forest can be cut down and the coal can be extracted. In a leaked video, Laschet admitted that he was just looking for any legal reason to get them out of the forest. The reason they finally chose was that the tree houses, now comes the big joke, the tree houses were not built in according to the fire code. So the tree houses maybe might catch fire, and that's why everybody had to be evacuated. And the forest had to be cut down anyway. So in order to protect the forest from fires, they cut it all down. So what is made clear was that Laschet is not a man of integrity, but he is a man who can be bought for the right amount of money. Also, his son is involved in many so-called mask scandals. Deals where masks were bought for way too much money. So many people made a lot of money. And he was involved in all of this. Of course he laughed during the wrong time. This also cost him many points. So, it really seems that he did not want to win. There was even a single Freudian slip where he said that in case our party wins, and this is something we want to avoid at all costs, I will do blah blah blah. So he said that he wants to avoid at all costs that his party would win. Then this YouTuber also made a video about Philip Amtor. Philip Amtor is a 20-something-year-old guy who looks like a very little boy. And he is, surprise surprise, famous for being corrupt. Then the same YouTuber did also a video about Olaf Schultz, the currently most likely guy to become the next president. Schultz is most famous for being the mayor of Hamburg during the G7 meeting. Remember the one meeting where the whole city was on fire and there were randals everywhere, where there were masked people everywhere breaking storefronts and setting half of the city on fire. So he did not a good job of protecting even his own city. Another point was that during the time that he was the mayor, he allowed the police to use a vomit-inducing medicine on drug dealers, on suspected drug dealers. And it was known that this drug is not very safe. And one guy died because of it. But Olaf Scholz afterwards still defended his position. The use of this drug only stopped after the EU court forced Hamburg to stop using it. And then, of course, his biggest scandal was when he was the mayor of Hamburg, the so-called Cum-Ex deals. Long story short, if a bank is doing some business trades, they can get tax back if they had a lot of losses. There is a small bug in the whole system that can be abused. So a bank can do some dealings in a specific way and then get more money back than they have ever spent. And this happened in Hamburg. It was about 50 million euros. 50 million euros that Hamburg simply paid to the banks because of nothing. And when the time came that the banks should pay back this money because it became exposed that these deals were illegal and had happened, Hamburg did nothing and let the deadline pass. So the banks could simply keep the money, even though it was illegally obtained. Because for some reason the government simply did nothing. The next year almost the same happened, also again with 50 million euros roundabout, but that time the central government stepped in and the bank had to pay back the money. Olaf Scholz was asked in a political inquiry, but he just said that, I simply forgot about it. He simply forgot about that he had ever met with the bankers. There was a diary entry of one of the bankers that stated that, yes, I met with Olaf Scholz many times and he's a very good guy. So Olaf Scholz is somebody who has a very bad memory when it comes to millions of dollars and millions of euros that goes to his friends or colleagues or whatever. And this man is very likely to become the next German chancellor. In total, these Cum-Ex or Cum-Cum dealings cost the German taxpayer 30 billion euros. Yeah. And Scholz was also involved in the Wirecard scandal. Wirecard was a company that many German politicians
Schild for. They made a lot of advertisement for this company. The company combines smart AI technology with banking and credits and... in short, it had all the right keywords. But in reality, the sole goal of this company was not to make any profits, but to siphon a lot of money. Even Merkel herself made advertisements for this company in China when she visited it a few years ago. So in a way, all politicians fell for this trick of the company. The head of the company fled to Thailand with a couple billion euros. Or something like that. So it was the poster child company of the whole German government that every politician made a lot of advertisement for. But as it seems, nobody really looked into this company, because all the reports were silenced that, look, hey look, this is just a front company, there's nothing behind it. Yeah, and Olaf Schultz, the finance minister, was also involved in this company. So yeah, that's another scandal on his name. But yeah, okay, it's just a couple billion euros, and who could have known? It's not a sexy scandal. It's not like he made a mistake that most people can relate to. It's just some white-collar crime that costs billions of euros? Yeah, so it's not the main news at the moment. And anyway, if he was involved and he forgot about it and all his messages on his phone accidentally got deleted and the phone landed in the trash a couple of months ago, the usual stuff. Nobody is ever accountable for anything. The next politically important thing was the exposed video on Baerbock, the Green Party lady. The things that were revealed was that she is pretty unknown in her own local area, and also during her time in power she didn't do anything spectacular or worth any notion. And also, the biggest scandal she had was that one political guy who was in charge of the money used a lot of the money on prostitutes or some other things. And the Green Party didn't realize this for years. So he took the party's money and used it for his own very private uses. And Baerbock was in charge of this whole party that time. Then the biggest criticism of Baerbock is that she has a lot of speaking mistakes. Almost every speech that she talks, there are mistakes that she makes in the pronunciation of words. But technically speaking, one could say she is a little bit disabled, and criticizing her on that is not very fair. Overall, the main criticisms of Baerbock was that she has a speech disorder, that she faked a lot of her CV, that the book that she wrote, for whatever reason, most likely only to gain political power, or so that she could say, hey, look, I also wrote a book, that book contained a lot of plagiarism. So somebody helped her to write that book and used a lot of copy-pasting. My take is that there are little corruption scandals regarding to her, because she simply wasn't in power yet. Power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. And this is the main tagline of all the discoveries. All the politicians who were in power used their power for personal gain. As easy as that. Then you also did a video on the Yellow Party, Liberal Party, Christian Lindner. Yeah, Lindner also used his power to gain political advantages. And some other criticisms, but he's a small fish anyway. So, then the last video is on the Querdenken movement. What happened recently, only 1 or 2 days ago, that a man at a gas station asked the customer to pull up his mask. The customer was not happy. The customer came back 2 hours later and shot the guy in the head. He died. So now, of course, the question is, why would somebody shoot another man? And politically, this is being now used that he was somehow close to the Querdenken movement, and that all Querdenkers are all the people who criticize the mask mandates might be very dangerous to the society. But what is ignored, that this man was already known by the Secret Service, by the German Staatsschutz, so it seems that he already was mentally unstable, or maybe even had an alcohol problem. So it's very sad that, yeah, as usual, things are being used for political gain. But on the plus side, even more and more people are realizing that, wait a second, you are not playing fair, you are hypocrites, yes. Then we go to Rezo. He did 3 videos this time. First is called Incompetence, where he simply shows that politicians are, who would have guessed, incompetent, in many times. The second one was titled the Climate Catastrophe. The topic of this video was how many parties were in power for now almost 16 years have done little to save the climate, despite themselves often saying that they will do a lot, they did very little. And all other hypocritic aspects of this topic. And the last part was on corruption. He simply showed and summed up all the many times where politicians were very corrupt, and how the system is designed that they can get away with it. The criticism of this video is that he is mostly concentrating on the big political parties and not so much on the Green Party. But reason for that, as I stated before, is simply that the Green Party so far had little political scandals because they had little political power. So all the big fuck-ups were done by the big parties. All in all, it showed that, well, power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. For example, that every law that would bring more transparency to the political business has been postponed by mostly all of the political parties. Then there was a questionnaire that asked, what is the most important topic? What is the thing that decides most what party you will vote in the upcoming election? And the biggest vote was for climate change. So in this regard, all the pushing for the climate narrative has been very successful. Some examples. Greta Thunberg did a Fridays for Future march today with many people. In Berlin, this is now 2 days before the election. The YouTube channel Kurzgesagt made another video on Can You Fix Climate Change? But only the English version of the channel. The German channel has not produced this video yet. Yeah, the climate topic is always stressed as very important, and that the floodings were caused by the climate change and so on and so on. A big change in German politics was that this time there was no TV duel, but a TV trial. 3 people were discussing who will be the next chancellor. The interesting choice here is still that Baerbock was invited, because Baerbock's party in the current parliament still holds the least amount of seats. She is just invited because she's so popular. Anyhow, in these debates nobody really won. Baerbock was still Baerbock. Whenever she speaks, she has a lot of potential to make mistakes. Laschet is just, he's not planning to win, he's also making mistakes, maybe even on purpose. And Schultz has the biggest advantage, that he is pretty boring. And this cum-ex banking scandal is a little bit complicated, too complicated for most people. Like banking, taxes, tax returns, earning money, what is this? He doesn't have any big scandals to his name so far, or at least the scandals are being not reported on by the big media. Another fun fact is that each of the 3 candidates has created a new verb in the German language. Baerbock, for example, is now used as a verb when you make spelling mistakes or pronunciation mistakes. Gebaerbockt. And Scholz is being used if you forget very important things. So Scholzen is the verb. Yeah, and Laschet, I think he also had a verb, but I forgot about it now. Then there was also a TV show event for the small parties. And the AfD and the Left Party got all treated very badly by the moderators. They were cut off and got questions that were already, and received loaded questions that were framed in a particular way. But in all these, Alice Weidel from the AfD made very reasonable points, and she was at least well prepared. Then Martin Sonneborn, the guy from the Joke Party, from like the Mad magazine or the Onion magazine Fun Party, and he is a real member of the European Parliament. He got elected as a joke. He created his own video also called Die Zerstörung der EU, the destruction of the European Union, where he criticizes the European Union. Some criticisms are more like left-leaning, but one of his main criticisms that I have to give him a lot of respect for is that he criticizes that the EU is spending a lot of money on a European Union army, despite this being illegal according to EU contracts. That would explain why the German military is in such a bad shape, because it is up to the European Union to create a European army for the future. So national armies are not required anymore. That's why all the national armies are getting destroyed slowly from the inside. Then there is this German YouTuber, he's called Feroz Khan. His parents are from Pakistan. He created a video labeled "Do you still remember this?", where he shows all the big scandals of the last 4 years. Some scandals were memory hold, and some other scandals woke up a lot of people. especially in contrast to the current event of the gas station owner or worker who got shot by a man because he didn't want to wear a mask. There was another similar event recently. There was a man in Würzburg who attacked 3 women with a knife and killed them. Despite many interesting points, the official narrative was that the motive of his doing is unknown, and that he was very confused and that we as a society failed because we should have integrated him better. And he also showed some other violent actions against Germans that are being not mentioned in the media. And also another thing that woke up a lot of Germans to the democratic system that we have was the event when the AfD, so the right-wing party that nobody should ever work together with, was responsible for electing one guy in one local parliament. What happened was that the main party had not enough votes, but the yellow party, the FDP and the AfD together had more votes, and thus the AfD tactically elected the guy from the smaller party, so that the big party would not win. So it was the first time that the state president, to use US terms, was elected using the votes of the AfD. This got a lot of media attention. It was immediately compared to Nazi Germany. And Merkel, despite being on a trip in South Africa, stated that this election was inexcusable and had to be undone as soon as possible. So far to a democratic election. What happened then was that the guy who was elected, at the first night he said, yes, I accept the vote because I accept the democratic vote of all the people of my state. But then he and his children and his wife got threats on their life. So because he wanted for his family not to die, he then 1 day or 2 days later resigned. And the parliament simply elected the left party guy to become the new state mayor, to become the new state governor. They said that they would repeat this election in a year, but the year now has passed, and because of Corona and some other things, they decide to postpone their re-election. So this is, technically speaking, highly undemocratic. The democratically elected person had to resign because of threats on his life, and then another guy got elected who was not elected by the people, and they even postponed the democratic elections. And many people got really red-pilled by this. Even some elderly people, like a grandma who said, yes, normally I always vote for the Green, but what happened in Thüringen, this was not democratic at all. Yes, so what happened is that a lot of darkness is getting exposed. So yes, that was it for now. So, German elections are surprisingly interesting. First they tried to set up the Green Lady, but she made too many mistakes by herself. And then other people found the mistakes of her, and she also for some reason had to write a book that she didn't write herself despite claiming that she wrote it herself, that then contained too many plagiarism quotes. So very, very strange. See, she fell. And then the next guy who was the second in line, he made a lot of mistakes himself. And then through the media spotlight that was on him, a lot of other shady deals of him were revealed. He then also fell. And now the last guy in line is so boring and he talks so little that he has little room to make mistakes. He is currently Germany's finance minister, and the finance offices were raided recently by the police just a few days ago. And also one of his scandals was that he was very bad at fighting corruption and money laundering. There was a system set in place that should make everything easier, but what happened was that even fewer cases of money laundering were now looked at by the government. And also he has a very bad memory, but the bad memory is a common trend. Whenever some corruption cases rise, politicians simply can say, oh well, I have no memory of that. And yes, all the talks were done via my cell phone, and the cell phone mysteriously just got crashed by a car yesterday, so I'm sorry, we have no data that you could have access to. Yeah, so let's see what happens on Sunday, and how much Germany learned from the Democratic Party of the United States. Whoever will win this election, they will be a very weak candidate, because a lot of their dark secrets have already been revealed. And now to a very simple personal movie recommendation. I recently watched Dune, the recent Dune, in the cinema. I would recommend to watch it only if you have like an IMAX cinema or a very, very, very good, bright, loud cinema. Otherwise, let it be and wait for a director's cut maybe later. This movie is not bad. I like some things, I dislike some other things, but it has to be seen on a very big screen in the best quality possible. Otherwise, just wait for a Blu-ray release or a director's cut later. It is not worth to watch it in 3D. I watch it in 3D and it has few 3D elements. And then finally, a music tip. I recently found a band called Villagers of Ionia City. And the music is surprisingly very, very, very good. There were some YouTube comments writing that this music cured their depression, and I think it's true. So, if you want to listen to something, give them a try. If you really watch this whole thing, please write in the comment your favorite fruit. For example, my favorite fruit is apple. That way I can see how many of you have sat through this whole thing. And, as always, find your life's path and take action. Vital Redpill out.